Again, my name is Jonathan Winslow, Senior Vice President of Development for Advanced Power. I've been with Advanced Power for 8 years. We develop natural gas-fired power generation facilities. I had the responsibility and the honor to be involved as the project manager in our Carroll County facility. I had the opportunity to meet Bryce on one of my first trips out to Carroll County, and he did do a great job for us. So excited to be here today to talk about some of our existing projects and then a new project, Southfield Energy. So as we go through it, I'm just going to do a quick introduction about who is Advanced Power, take a look at some of the gas to electricity dynamics, look at Carroll County Energy and Southfield Energy as really a case study on what's going on in eastern and northeastern Ohio, talk about some challenges ahead that we think need to be addressed in the oil and gas industry as well as in the power industry to be able to allow more projects like this to be continued to be built, and then provide some recap on everything. So Advanced Power is a company that was formed in 2000, and we've developed 4 projects since that time. 2 in Europe, fully permitted, fully financed, in construction, and now operating. We have a number of projects in the U.S. as well, which we'll talk about on the next slide, but didn't come to the U.S. until around 2007 when we actually were hit by the recession at the same time. So that slowed things down a little bit, but offered us the opportunity to get going on our developments so that when the markets turned around, we'd be in a position where we could actually finance and construct facilities like this. Carroll County was our last project into our development queue and was our first project out. That has everything to do with the local support that we had at Carroll County, from the state level down to the local level, down to just people on the street that we met that supported the facility because they knew that there would be a lot of good jobs that came out of it. And so it's a testimony not only to the people in the room, but people of Ohio and the people of Carroll County. And in 2015, well, it was actually April 7th, 2015, we were able to achieve our financial closing. The total enterprise cost of the facility, including debt and equity, was $899 million. So this is a very large infrastructure project for Eastern Ohio. And we mobilized to the site the very next day. It was April 8th that Bechtel went out there under their lump sum turnkey EPC contract and started to mobilize equipment to site to be able to achieve a 30-month construction period. So big project, lots of things ahead. Just point out here, you know, when we're doing a lot of talk earlier today with a lot of great speakers about what's happening in the energy world, what's happening with oil and gas. And I can remember when I first got involved in this industry, you know, people would really ask me 2 questions. If you had a cocktail party, they'd say something like, well, is it foreign or is it domestic what you're doing? Or is it good for the environment or is it bad? And I think, you know, we really have an excellent opportunity to be able to go ahead and answer those questions the way that we all want to and feel proud of. You know, this here is Ohio natural gas that'll be used to fuel this facility. It's domestic. And when you look at the energy issues and whether it's good for the environment or bad, this is the best thing we could be doing right now to rejuvenate the power industry and be able to provide good, clean megawatts out there for consumers to use. So this is just a look at what we're doing at Advanced Power. It's our mandate to develop, acquire, own, and operate these facilities. We've, as I said, done 2 in Europe. We also have a number of other generators that are under development in Europe, and we have a number in the United States. Over the last 8 years, we've been able to get Carroll County fully permitted into construction, and now is on its construction timeline that we're just talking about. But we also have 3 other projects which are under development. 1 outside of Boston that's fully developed. We hope to have that financed within the first half of 2016. And also 1 in New York just outside of Manhattan. And that project is 1,000 megawatts, so larger than Carroll County Energy. And we are fully permitted there, getting our final licenses, and expect that to have to go through financing and be in construction in 2016 as well. And then the new dot we can mention or look at here is in Columbiana County, and that will be a over 1,000 megawatt facility. It'll be some of GE's newest combustion turbine technology, meaning that it will be more efficient than pretty much anything else out there on the grid. It'll be wet cooled, which will also add to its efficiency and the ability for it to be able to competitively bid into the market, offering lower prices as we go forward and utilize natural gas for power generation. When we do these developments, we look at this as quality, quality, quality. We want to bring in the best partners we possibly can into these developments. There are enough risks associated with development and also market dynamics of facilities like this. It takes over 2 years to develop a project like this. So we bring in the best in the business. On Carroll County and on our Southfield project, we will be working with Bechtel under EPC contracts. Again, they show up, lump sum, turnkey. It's a known price from day one, and they deliver it to schedule and on time so that we're able to interconnect into the grid the way that we've described. We also bring in partners on the technology. So here you can see Siemens and GE. We work with both Siemens and GE for the combustion turbine technology and other technologies that we need to utilize within these facilities. Both the Carroll County facility and the Southfield facility will be driven by GE gas turbines. And we're proud to be able to say that some of the developments in Europe and one of our other developments in the United States utilize Siemens technology to do the same thing. And then it goes down to our equity partners. We like to bring in people that like to hold on to and own these assets for a very long period of time. These are insurance companies. And if I were to go through, Chubu Electric is an owner of the Carroll County Energy facility as well. They're a Japanese powerhouse company, so they operate facilities like this in Japan. We also have Lincoln and Prudential financial institutions. They're involved. These guys all hold on to these assets for a long period of time. So let's look at exactly what we do. I'm sure for most people in the room, they know exactly what I'm talking about here, but if you look at the supply chain from pipeline gas all the way to the eventual consumer, we are the gas-fired power generator. It costs about $1 million a megawatt to install the steel and get the project off the ground, 700 megawatts. Here, it's about $700 million of steel that will eventually go into the ground over the 30-month construction period. The total enterprise value, as I described, was about $899 million. At peak construction on Carroll County, there'll be about 500 construction workers that will be out there. And during the operational life of the facility, there'll be somewhere around 20 to 25 personnel out at the facility site. The high voltage transmission system, we leave that to the transmission owners. That'll be AEP or First Energy, whoever you might get your bill by here. And the low voltage distribution system is also owned by them before it comes down and you get your bill at your house. And so what we do, the primary part of our business is converting those the natural gas into electrons and putting it onto the grid. And that energy is then wholesaled through PJM, the clearinghouse. So what kind of dynamics are we looking at here? Well, there's a couple of things going on that I wanted to make sure that we highlighted. Some of them are correlations and some of them are changes. So first I'm going to talk about the correlations that we see in the market. Since natural gas-fired units are in the market, and they are typically the marginal unit, meaning they're the last unit that is being dispatched by in this case, PJM, the RTO or the ISO. Natural gas prices effectively set the electricity price that is being seen in the market. And you can see that here. So the Henry Hub gas price is the yellow dotted line, and as it moves along through time, you see the PJM RTO zone price fluctuate. You can see just by plainly looking at it that there's quite a bit of correlation. Now there's two events that have happened in the last 2 years. Well, actually I'm going to outline 3 events. In 2008, you can see the influence of all of the shale gas coming online. And that shale gas resulted in a significant decrease in the overall price that was realized at Henry Hub. That allowed, it changed, quite frankly, it changed the power generation dynamic immensely. Some of those changes are still playing out today, with natural gas-fired power generation units becoming much more competitive in the market, meaning that they have and they will continue to displace older, less efficient, and coal-fired units that can't compete. You also see over that period of time a reduction in the overall volatility of the market. And that's kind of outlined in the area that we have as the Marcellus production comes online. And then in 2014, an event that people probably remember more from how unbelievably cold it was outside than the natural gas prices they were getting. but we had sustained cold weather temperatures throughout the Midwest and the Northeast that resulted in a significant dislocation in the power pricing and gas pricing in the market. You can see the polar vortex in 2014 caused the power price to increase much more dramatically than the gas price. And that was really a result, looking back on it now, of the fact that natural gas-fired power generation units just couldn't get the fuel to their facilities because it was being held back and put towards residential uses, or it was curtailed for some other reason. And you see the same phenomenon happen again in January of 2015, where there's a complete dislocation. In fact, in January 2015, you can actually see that natural gas prices were dropping at a period where electricity prices were increasing. And that's something that we're going to talk about over the course of the next couple of slides, but some good things to note. One of the other things to take note of between these two slides is that as a natural gas-fired generator, we don't necessarily like prices dropping. If you have a price that drops for your largest variable cost of production, and you're measured against the efficiency of all the other units in the market, how much revenue you can get from the market, you want prices of that commodity to be high so that you can take a bigger spread. It's called a spark spread against the marginal unit. Now, while our spark spread got hurt as a natural gas-fired unit in the market, the coal spark spread got killed. Okay, so these coal-fired generators, as they compete against natural gas-fired generators, just are not able to compete. They don't have any of the economic gain there to keep running coal-fired units. And what we've seen as a result is that the overall natural gas-fired power generation has increased in terms of the total amount of megawatts that are on the grid, to the point where it's now outpacing coal for the first time ever. And we keep seeing more reports that would indicate that the projection that you see here of natural gas-fired generation kind of being somewhat on the same level to a little bit less than coal-fired generation is actually not what we'll see in the future, and that in fact continued low natural gas prices will lead to continued coal retirements. So that's something that's playing out in the market without any kind of political intervention, without any new regulatory rules, without anything, and natural gas is winning in power generation. If you take a look at that against what else is happening in the market, you see that natural gas is becoming more competitive from a generation source perspective, and that there are a lot of opportunities that are opening up in places like Eastern Ohio to install new natural gas-fired generation. And that brings me to the next slide. Why is it happening here? We described some of the kind of macro market conditions that are going on with the coal-fired units, but there are other things that are going on here as well. One is that there is a large majority of the oldest generation units in the country are located in the Ohio and kind of Midwest region of the country. And that just happens to overlap with where we're finding the Utica and the Marcellus Shale play. And so that puts a lot of competitive forces onto those units. And as a result, we've had over 35 gigawatts of coal retirements be announced between 2012 and 2015. That's about 11% of the US coal generating capacity, or enough coal generating capacity to power or electrify 35 million homes in the United States. So this is a significant change that's happened. And again, these are not new units. These aren't things that we should be concerned about retiring. These are units that are 40, 50, 60 years old. They're once through cooling. They don't cut it from an emissions perspective, and they certainly don't cut it from a cost competitiveness perspective. So there's a significant amount of new natural gas-fired generation that's going online to replace that in these regions, which is great for places like Ohio because it means more construction jobs, it means more efficient generation, it means less emissions, and it means that you have a revitalization of the overall electricity grid. So I'm going to take a look at Carroll County as an example. So this is our Carroll County facility currently under construction. It's a 700 to 750 megawatt CCGT, combined cycle gas turbine technology, which means that we drive a turbine, an electric generating, and generate electricity off of the gas turbine, as well as recover all of the heat that comes out of the back of that turbine and then drive a steam turbine off of that. It's located about 2.5 miles north of the village of Carrollton. It interconnects into the Tennessee gas pipeline system and then the AEP 345 kV system. And it utilizes a local source of water from the village of Carrollton. These facilities use a minimal amount of water to be able to generate electricity, and they are highly efficient as compared to their competitors. If we're looking at the facility, I just want to point out a couple of features here as we go through it. This is an air-cooled facility, and the large block that you see kind of in the back left-hand side of the image here is called an air-cooled condenser. It operates much like a radiator on your car. So as we need to cool down the steam that's driving the steam generator, the steam then leaves the steam generator, it goes through the air-cooled condenser. It has fans just like in your car radiator. You drive air across that steam, it reduces the temperature, and you can bring it back into the cycle. And that is the key to having a efficient ACC is key to having a efficient combined cycle gas fired facility. On this project, as we've talked about, we've brought in some really great partners. We have Bechtel as the EPC contractor. We have Ethos Energy, who will be the operator, and we have GE Technology. When you first look at power generation development, you got to find at least three things, right? You've got to find a gas interconnection, you've got to find an electrical interconnection, and you've got to find a water source. And those things all need to be close to each other. On this particular site, they're all either on the landowner's property or they're on our immediately adjacent landowner. But that's not the only thing you need to find, because the market is only open for a certain period of time to allow new gas-fired generators like this to come into it. So what we saw when we looked at Ohio is that a large number of coal-fired generating units were going to be retired as a result of economics and some of the environmental regulations that were there. The other thing that we saw, and really quite frankly we noticed when we got on the ground, were all the white trucks that were around. Okay, we weren't really aware of what was happening with Utica at the time. This is 2012. This is early days. When we looked at the gas market, what we really recognized was that we were west of the Marcellus. And at that time, on the Tennessee gas pipeline, you had Gulf gas supplies that were coming up the Tennessee pipe, and then Marcellus was being added, and they were all going to the high-value markets in the Northeast. And so our thinking was, if you could be west of the Marcellus, you should be able to buy some pretty cheap gas. Well, what we found was over the next 2 years of development, that the Utica play grew up to what it is today. And as a lot of other people have said, we're just at the beginning of that. So I think that there's a lot of things that have changed to allow this project and other projects to be able to be financed and come online and provide the electricity source that will eventually happen. But there's also a lot more to still continue changing as Utica continues to be harvested and utilized within the market. So these are all good things. As we look a little bit deeper on what's going on with the gas and commodity story here, we actually burn about 110,000 MMBTU per day at the facility. And that translates into the approximate 700 megawatts of electricity. Now, to be able to get financing on a facility like this, you need to be able to show the debt and the equity that you're going to have a long-term power offtake, you're going to have revenues at the facility, and that those revenues are lined up with what your gas cost is. So you're going to be able to get the gas at a price that's reasonable enough that you can sell the power, create that spark spread that I was talking about a little while ago, for a long period of time. And so what that means from a gas contract perspective is that we need gas marketers, suppliers, other people in the gas industry to come together to be able to offer us an indexed price on natural gas that starts 3 years after we sign the contract, the 3 years of construction, and goes on for 5 years. That is a stretch for most people out there. So it takes a lot of work to get that gas contract together, and then we go out and we do the exact same thing on the power side. We line that gas contract up with a power offtake, and we have people go that same distance, go 8 years on a power contract from the day we sign it, so that we can guarantee the revenues to the facility that will allow us to pay down the debt and provide the equity return required for the investment. This is what Carroll County looks like today, or at least our facility site. The top image is, I think, about a month and a half into construction. I see Beavers here. You need to give them a little bit of a shout out too. They were the local contractor that was chosen for the earthwork by Bechtel. There's a lot of dirt to move at the site. Right now, I was just out there last week. I think this is an image from about 2.5 weeks ago. There's probably 3 times as many cranes out there right now. They're getting ready to do one of the largest concrete pours that'll happen at the site. It should happen sometime next week. There will be, I think, somewhere around 20 concrete trucks that will work for over an 18-hour period coming in to do deliveries of concrete for the steam turbine pad. And I just looked at the daily today, and there's something about 140 to 150 workers on site, making sure that this project stays on schedule. And again, the peak labor force here will be somewhere around 500 personnel, and that'll happen roughly right around the time when the building goes up and all the pipes and wires need to be brought through the building. So it's a very active construction site. We're very excited to have it in construction. We very much look forward to bringing it online, and it's going to be a great resource for Ohio. So we liked it so much, we decided to stay. This is our Columbiana County project. We refer to it as Southfield Energy. It is very similar in technology. One thing that you'll note when looking at the image is that this has a different set of cooling towers. The other one had a big bank that was out in the back. I pointed it out. This one has 2 long trains for cooling. The cooling technology here is wet-cooled technology. It's much more efficient. It would be like, as I described it before, your car radiator, instead of passing air through it, you're passing water across it, which allows the steam to cool down much more rapidly and provides greater efficiency for the unit. The other thing to note is it's 2 trains, meaning there's 2 gas turbines and there's 2 steam turbines here instead of the other arrangement, which was a 2-on-1. So a 2-on-2 allows you to have more flexibility. If you only want to run 1 train, you can run it down to its min-gen level, allowing you to get much lower megawatts out. And if you only want to run half the unit, you can run it at its full output, which will give you the greatest efficiency for that amount of generation. It's located about 3 miles outside the village of Wellsville, and we just announced the project last week. So we're kind of off to the races on this. It's about a 2.5 year development timeline. This project will be over 1,000 megawatts. It'll be over $1 billion. The 2 projects together will be well over $2 billion that we will have put into Eastern Ohio in private investment. So really big projects, great for the energy infrastructure as a whole, and great for Ohioans that like to, that are part of the construction force or can help operate these facilities. This is a image of our development schedule. I was talking with someone earlier about our Carroll County experience. It's the only time that we've been able to take our development schedule and live up to it. It was fascinating to see the government work at the speed of business and to see the local business support the way that we had it. And it was really a testimony to everybody's interest in solving this problem and harvesting the value that comes out of the Utica, both on Carroll, and we're meeting great reception here. So on our Southfield Energy project, we just filed our EPA air permit application in the middle of 2015. We're looking to get that back sometime in 2016. We'll file for our major permits through the Ohio Siting Board process, where we'll get the license to construct and operate the facility. It's a one-stop shop in Ohio. And we hope to be finished with that process sometime in the 3rd or 4th quarter of 2016, enter a financing and get the project underway in terms of construction. So as I said, we'd talk a little bit about some of the changes and some of the in the market. And I think there's a couple here to note so that we can continue to develop these types of facilities in a way that's responsible and in a way that conforms to the PJM, the RTOs, and the ISOs rules. We talked about the polar vortex, and we talked about the dislocation that happened there. Well, as a result of that, there's been a significant amount of rule changes, both in ISO New England, which is the RTO that's up in the Boston area, and in PJM, which is the RTO that we're located here in Ohio. And the major changes have to deal with capacity performance. If you're a power generator and you go through one of these periods and gas is withheld from you, you are going to be responsible. And they have put in punitive damages to facilities that cannot operate at times where the system is in an emergency condition. And what has happened is that they have, when I say they, the PJMs and the ISO New Englands of the world have put in these punitive damages to basically force the gas suppliers and the power generators to work together to be able to come up with a firm product. So firm gas or firm gas transportation to the facilities so that they know that they'll be able to operate at these times. There we go. So as we go forward and we're looking at the harvesting of the Marcellus and the Utica, and we're looking at integrating natural gas-fired power generation both in PJM and ISO New England, there are several things that we need to do as a community. We need to come together. We need to build out our infrastructure. We've heard that as a major theme today. That infrastructure needs to be built out so that we can provide highly reliable gas resources to power generation facilities, and so that those power generation facilities can comply with market rules. We need to make sure that there are firm long-term contracts. We need to make sure that there are that they come with a level of financial security in terms of the counterparty risks, so that we can bring these contracts to the banks collectively, and they can see the value in these contracts long term. And then the final thing is we need to look at innovative solutions. So as the market always changes, we need to look at ways to put together energy hedges and gas supply agreements, either in ways that we've done it in the past, like tolling agreements, or ways that people are looking at doing it now, looking at a power indexed gas price. There's a lot of innovative ideas out there, and there's a lot of ways to do this. But together as a community, we need to come together to solve these three issues that are out there so that we can continue to utilize natural gas-fired power generation in these markets. So with that, I'd like to invite any questions.
Thank you for that. Please raise your hand if you have questions. I have one. We've talked about skilled building trades workforce a number of times today. We've even talked about the fact that some projects have been put on hold because they're worried about enough skilled tradesmen to build the plants. What are your concerns, or do you have no concerns because of arrangements you've made?
Well, I would definitely say with regards to the construction of the Carroll County Energy Facility, we have no concerns. One of the first thing that Bechtel does as an EPC contractor is they look at the workforce that is available within the region. And I believe that all of the workforce, the 500 construction workers that I talked about, will be coming from somewhere around within an hour and a half's commute to the job site. So that's, that means these are local folks effectively that are constructing this facility.
Okay. You talked about needing 8-year agreements with gas suppliers and electricity buyers, 3 years to develop the site, and then the next 5 years. Does the investment pay off in 5 years?
No, the investment does not pay off in 5 years. But what is able to happen in that first 5 years is you're able to put together a financing that pays down the debt to a level where folks are comfortable with it. And that asset, that power generating facility, will then effectively be owned by the equity, and that equity will go out and operate the facility for the next, 25 years.
Is that what you estimate the life of these plants to be without retrofitting them into new technology?
Yeah, without a major overhaul, you're looking at somewhere between a 25 to 30-year lifespan on the facility.
And one other thing, unless I misheard you incorrectly, you said the market is open only for a short period of time now for these kinds of new gas generation. Why would that be?
Maybe I use that just to motivate myself every day. but it's just kind of the way that markets work, right? So when you have a major recession like we did in 2007 and 2008, we still believed in the long-term forecast that new power generation was going to be required. But it delays everything, right? Because the capital isn't there to make the large investments. The credit isn't there on the counterparty piece from a gas supplier or from a person that you might do an energy hedge with, and so things slow down. And you don't the opportunity that presents itself to, I think, us collectively today is one that capital is freed up and people are ready to put that capital to work. And so that's the unique opportunity that we have today. And specifically in Ohio, you got to overlay that with all the other stuff we talked about there. But certainly the proximity to natural gas and the story of retiring the antiquated generation is a huge part to this market being as open as it is.